Legalizing sex, drugs, and suicide. I'll start off with, see which one is my favorite. I'll start off with sex. Okay, adult consensual sex. Um, Before I say anything else, let me just share my philosophy about authority that adult people should not be under the authority of anyone. Adults should be under their own authority only, and whomever they designate to have authority over them, they themselves must designate that individual or that group of individuals. Um, this whole idea that adults need supervision and, like, there should be some authority figure, some authoritative individual who's calling the shots and telling us what we can do with our own bodies and in our own private spaces and stuff is to me, in my philosophy, ridiculous. So that's Ishani's philosophy on adult authority. Authority is something that is used for children. Children need that. Okay, you have to protect children, so they have to listen to you, they have to obey you, they have to obey adults. That, obedience is important with children, but adults being obedient is criminal. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's crazy for adult people to be obedient to anyone but themselves and God, which is themselves. So I'm going to start out with sex because it's the oldest profession in of all time. It's the oldest profession of all time is prostitution. Um Prostitution is really, for some people, their only choice. It's the only thing they can do. And for some people it's the only thing they want to do. And that's okay. You know what I mean? As long as they're over 18. What should it matter? Actually, I would probably raise that up to 21, but I know that would be idealistic, but um you know that's just who they are. That's what they want to do. And who am I or anybody else to say that they can't do that when they're an adult? You know, they're having sex for money. They're consenting to having sex for money. This is how they make ends meet. This is how they live. It's not safe out there on the streets. It's not safe. I like seeing the beautiful women walking up and down the street because it's eye candy, and they are the best dressed women in my neighborhood. They're the most interesting thing on the street in my neighborhood. I can't speak for anyone else's, but we got some fine ones around here. So, my selfishness aside, I would like to see those girls, those young ladies, and some trannies too, and a few males as well. I've even seen children out here, and I'll get to that in a second. But I took too many supplements today, and my throat is so dry. It's terrible. But I'd like to see those young people in a private home, in a private home, in their space, in an apartment, in a house, someplace safe, someplace where they have control over their environment, and they can live their life how they want to live their life. That's what I want to see happen with prostitution. There are quite a few videos out there on the internet dealing with this issue, the legalization of prostitution. I've learned so much about the subject just listening to law enforcement, as well as mainly prostitutes themselves, as well as customers and owners of brothels, and this the whole gamut. It's a really fun, if you just have like a day to just like be on, some kind of kick or whatever. It's a fun thing to get into and to really explore, because you realize that the girls that are out there doing the job, and the boys and the girls, the trannies, and the trannies are really spearheading the whole legalization movement because they have it the hardest out there. They do. They face the worst kinds of judgment, persecution, violence and everything than anybody. So they're spearheading the movement towards legalization. I support them 100%, and I would write that on a sign and go out there and support them. Another thing is that people are going to jail for sex. That's incredible, for buying sex or for selling sex. So that's ridiculous. How sex and drugs, that's what we do, right? That's what adults do. And it's really incredible to go to jail for that. That's just totally inappropriate as far as I can tell. So before I'm done with the sex issue, I just want to say that sex with minors should be handled way more harshly than it is, because at the moment there are incredible things that I've found online of stories of minors who have come to law enforcement for help, and law enforcement molested them, or told them they were lying, and that didn't really happen to them, or stuff like that, just totally denying them. And not just law enforcement, but other adults that should be looking out for kids that are out there, that are being trafficked. We're way too passive with it. So my proposition for that is that if you're a man who has sex with children, after the third, time that you've been convicted of that crime, you should be amputated. Your male parts should be chopped off, because what they're doing in some states is they're medically castrating men by giving them hormones, estrogen injections, and they have to get their estrogen injections. They can't not take it. Like, it's a mandate. It's a court mandate. And these men are still at it. They're still at it, even with the court mandate, even with the feminization of them. They're still at it. So they should be castrated. That's how I feel. If a man is a rapist, if he's raping women, even adult women, if he's a rapist, if he's a violent offender, or if he ever has sex with children, I'd like to say even once, but that would be going to, that might be a little too strict, but I would say 3 times, because the ones that do that, they are repeat offenders. Those sex offenders, they have a problem. So I'm not trying to advocate for sex with children. Absolutely not. There are arranged marriages in this country and all over the world between minors and adults. All of that stuff needs to be handled much more strictly. And those are the people who belong in jail, the people that are doing the human trafficking and having sex with children. So yeah, I would like to see the complete decriminalization of prostitution, like right away, so that these young kids out here, these teenagers and 20 somethings and 30 somethings, they should have a life, that where they can pursue their happiness. They can go to college, they can have a safe place to lay their head at night, and have homes where they can do their thing and not worry about it. Because as long as you're an adult, how can anybody tell you what to do with your body? That's how I see it. So then the second part to this, and I'm really hungover and just crusty as hell right now, so just please forgive me, but I just wanted to make this video anyway. The second part is the drugs. Okay. Now, we all use drugs. Okay. Everybody uses drugs. There are very few people who don't use any drugs. In my life, I say 98% of the people that I know use drugs. Either they're using pharmaceutical drugs, or they're using street drugs, or they drink alcohol or cigarettes, all of that stuff, even though alcohol and cigarettes is legal. I'd like to see everything decriminalized from the rooter to the tutor. So that means just a complete decriminalization of crack and meth and heroin, the worst things, that we're all so scared of. Oh my God, I'm so scared of drugs. Oh, wow. We need to decriminalize all that stuff. And the main reason is for safety, is one of the big reasons, because people don't know what they're getting out there in the street. People are selling all kinds of dangerous things and people are dying from it. And those people didn't necessarily want to die. Just because they're a heroin addict or whatever doesn't mean they want to die. The quality of drugs would improve tremendously if it was legal, because you would have people manufacturing drugs in our own country and growing crops of coca plants and opium poppies. And we're already doing the cannabis thing. It's very controlled, and it's really, not just fully legal like it should be, but I mean, cannabis, none of the plants should ever have a cap on them, and then meth, there are houses that, are secret meth laboratories, and they don't tell anybody that they were producing meth in there. So then when they move out, the new people that move in or buy the property don't know that that was a meth laboratory, because you have to take out you got to rip out the carpets, you got to repaint, you have to do everything. Like, you basically got to gut the whole entire inside of the place, because the chemicals are so strong and they're so damaging. It's all on everything, the countertops, everything has to go. Like, you have to resurface everything. So, if it was all legal, then people would be producing better drugs, higher quality drugs. And, I see in my utopic vision of the world that, if you're a drug user, if you want to use drugs, you can go to the drug clinic, and God, it's so irritating. You can go and get a menu. You know what I mean? Like, they can have lounges, like drug lounges, and you go and you get your menu. What do you want today? And you can do whatever drug you want. And if you want to have sex and pay for that, you can have that too. If you want to sell you some sex, you can do that and have that at it. I mean, human beings are intelligent people. We know that there's a time and a place for everything. We're naturally going to separate that from elementary schools, and we're pretty smart. People are pretty smart when it comes to stuff like that. We know how to appropriate things. So I don't want to see people in jail for selling drugs. Of course they're going to sell drugs. That's the only option for some people. If you tell somebody you can make $100 a day just standing here on this corner, that's small. That's a small time little drug dealer. They're going to take that money, because there aren't many things that you can do for $100 a day. You can't work at Walmart for $100 a day. You can't work at Burger King for $100 a day. You're not getting $100 a day very many other ways. So it breeds entrepreneurship into young people. The drug business does, and the sex business as well. They both breed entrepreneurship into young people. It gives them a vision. It gives them a business savvy. It gives them something to focus on, an approach. They need something to do. They need stuff to do. Of course, they're going to do sex and drugs. That's going to naturally occur, with young people, because that's what young people like to do. I mean, you don't have any kids, you're not married yet, so you might as well live it up, have a great time. Portugal has decriminalized drugs. Well, they did. It was like back in, I think, 2016, or maybe, yeah, something like that. And they saw a dramatic decrease in addiction, and even just in the purchase of drugs and everything, just a decrease. Because I was thinking about that philosophy, like, if the drugs are illegal, then you panic, right? Because when you find some that are good, you feel like you got to buy it up, and so people panic and they don't think they're going to get any more, so they overuse, and then they don't even know what they're getting, because you don't have testing kits out there in the street to test the drugs. You can't test the purity of your MDMA, for example, which everyone should get good MDMA. I mean, why should you have to take something that's a question mark over it? You don't know what it is. What is it? Drano? I mean, you just don't know. People are dying this way. And not just dying, dying is a merciful thing. People are getting sick. People are going blind. People are having all kinds of problems from street stuff that they don't even know what's in it. So I see a world where, you can go and do your drugs in a safe environment. There's a medical staff there if you need it. They're not over your shoulder. They're not telling you how much to take or anything. They're saying, here's the menu. This is what we have. And, people like this or they don't like that or whatever, just like a restaurant, and you can go in your own private room and use your drugs, and there will be a fee. I'm not saying that the government should pay for all of this, because if you make the drugs legal, best believe people that use drugs are going to have money. Okay. They're going to have money, because if it's legal, that's their thing, is drugs. They're going to produce drugs. They're going to be useful in society. Their drug habit isn't going to make them a piece of garbage the way that we treat people now, putting them in jail, locking them away just because they have a drug habit or just because they took the money. This is how they trap people up in jail. I would like to see 90% of the prisons go away, because prison should be for the real scumbag. You know, prison should be for the real low life creeps out there. Okay, so the third one is suicide. Um, Criminalizing suicide. That's incredible to me. When I first heard that, I remember that I was just like, because I had a suicide attempt back in 2013, and um, I didn't know that you could go to jail for that. Like they can actually lock you up for attempting suicide. I mean, is that pathetic or what? Is that sad? We don't have anything better to offer people who are suicidal other than jail. Come on. You know, if you want to commit suicide and you're over 18 years old, there should be a suicide center where you can go and you can stay. You know, you wouldn't be allowed to commit suicide right away, but they'll give you, a week or two to have some counseling and group therapy. Maybe do some drugs, maybe have some sex, maybe enjoy your life a little, and come together with other people who were suicidal previously. You know, we know what people like. People like fun. And if you have fun, you ain't gonna want to commit suicide anymore. You know, and those who still want to commit suicide, well, that's fine. That's their choice. And I think the suicide should be, available for everyone who really wants to do it, if that's really their final decision after having counseling and all that stuff. So these are just very, very obvious things to me, things that were probably always legal. It was probably always fine if you wanted to sell your butt, that was probably okay. It's the oldest profession of all time. If you wanted to sell sex, that was probably fine. If you wanted to buy sex, that was probably fine. Always, up until very recently in the United States. It's like the United States went ahead and just criminalized everything, sex, drugs. And the reason that they criminalize stuff is because then the government gets to take the lion's share of the profits. And, it leaves all of the little people who work in the drug business vulnerable to the powers that shouldn't be. So I know it's radical, and I can already hear people's arguments in the mind, like, well, if you legalize drugs, isn't everybody going to use drugs? Everybody uses drugs, guys. Okay, you're not really, you have to become correct. If drugs were legal, that means I would have my drug of choice right now if I wanted to use it, which I probably would, because I'm hung over and I could use that drug of choice right now. So yeah, we're the United States. We can do whatever we want. If we want to produce the best drugs in the world, all we have to do is legalize drugs. And then we'll have teenagers and people in their 20s, not minors. I'm not advocating any of this for minors, because I really think that there are decent people in the drug business, drug dealers and stuff. I've known a few, doughboys that held it down. They took care of their family. They paid for their families to live in nice areas, and kids to go to good schools and have the things that they need, and everything. So just because you're in the drug business doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a business person. And that's something that should be encouraged in our society, not discouraged. Because when a good man goes to jail just for selling drugs, that's a huge loss to the community. So I see a world where, people take control over their appetites. We like sex, we like drugs, and some of us want to commit suicide. Okay? And none of that should be criminalized. The prisons are just making money hand over fist. They got people locked up in there. They're clowning. They're doing too much. They're getting billions and billions of dollars off of human suffering. And where all of this stuff could just be legal. If it was legal, they wouldn't have no profits. That's why they don't legalize it. We have to take a stand. We, the people, have to take a stand. We have to say this is what we want. Because right now, we ain't saying nothing. We ain't saying nothing. People are talking about coronavirus. People are talking about Black Lives Matter. Make my head spin off. My head wants to spin off with the silliness that's being communicated right now. I don't hear no conversation that's valid. I don't hear no conversation about anything that's going to make anything any better. If you really, really think that Joe Biden is going to be better than Trump, it's just so goofy. Like, can we talk about stuff that might really actually make a difference in our country? Like, industries that, we wouldn't have to depend on foreign countries for, like drugs. Okay. And like oil, obviously, that's another one. But I mean, the United States can be independent in so many ways. We can produce a lot of things here and export because we're very wealthy. We have vast land resources, plenty. So there's really no excuses. It's us against them, and they'll get away with as much as they can. They'll push us up against the wall the way that we are now, to where we really, some of us don't have a lot of options as to how to make a living and how to get rich if we wanted to. They make it so hard to own a business legitimately, and so I say take their power away, and their power is in sex and drugs. I promise you, the government, the CIA, that's all the black operations. That's all funded by human trafficking, weapons trafficking, and drug trafficking. And it's only possible because drugs are illegal. If drugs were legal, none of that profit would even be seen in their hands. So sorry I'm so crusty, but I just had to say this while it was on my brain. All right, have a good day. Peace.